Oh.
All right.
So Anna, I had to take Sean to work, so I've asked Candy if she will host the meeting for us.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm gonna have to go.
Fine. Yeah, no problem. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess it's like it's a yeah, we'll continue. The numbers are really, they're exciting in the right way, I guess, continuing to trend downwards, which is really excellent news. I mean, Halton has been in single digits for a few days, which is just absolutely thrilling, I think, to everybody. You know, I won't sort of dwell too much on the Delta variant right now, because I sort of talked about that the last couple of weeks, knowing that that's kind of in the wings, but also knowing that people who are doubly vaccinated seem to be well protected against that variant, not perfectly, but well protected against that variant. And there was a case reported this week in Waterloo of a woman in a long-term care facility who died even though she had received two of the two vaccines. She was doubly vaccinated. It's interesting, though, to look at the language that's being used. They're talking about someone who died with COVID-19 because it's not entirely clear that COVID was the cause of her death, right? And so 90-year-olds do die, and so sometimes someone can die with COVID and not necessarily from COVID. But it does highlight the point that vaccines are not perfect, right? There are always going to be some people who can still get sick and still get very sick, even if they're fully vaccinated. But they are absolutely, without a doubt, our best line of defense at this point. So one of the questions that I've been asked a lot this week is, are the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines interchangeable? And the answer is absolutely yes. Some people will describe it as being the difference between Coke and Pepsi, and I think that that's fair. The technology in both of those vaccines is very similar. They're both mRNA vaccines. They are both equally effective at preventing symptomatic infections and equally effective at preventing severe disease and hospitalization, like remarkably so. And so people should not hesitate to get the Moderna vaccine if that is the one that's offered to them. I've heard anecdotally and have sort of read that sometimes people are arriving at vaccination facilities, finding out they're not getting Pfizer and walking away. And it's the difference between 95% protection and like 94% protection. Really, it's, getting doubly vaccinated as soon as possible is the most important thing that somebody can do. And so, vaccination rates in Halton actually continue to look really good. So I think it's 77% of the population has had at least one dose, and we're at about 23% of the population of Halton that have had 2 doses. It's really interesting to see the percentages of first doses and second doses in each day, though. So significantly more second doses happening right now, which makes sense. Easily 80% of the vaccines that are being given now are second doses, which is fantastic because it means that we're moving that number up much faster than anticipated. But I do worry a little bit that there may be a little bit of sort of vaccine hesitancy in some younger populations in the area. And so what I would generally encourage, especially younger people in their 20s, like 25 to 30 is an age range that's not as well covered, 30 to 40 is an age range that's not as well covered, to really strongly consider getting vaccinated, because it would be very, very, very good to get that number, that first dose administered number, higher than 77%. And I think we'll continue to get there, but that is definitely the group that we're seeing the lowest rates of uptake of vaccines right now. And I know that there are a whole bunch of different reasons for that. Some of it is just busyness. Some of it is, maybe sort of, hesitating in terms of the technology and wanting to wait until, there's more data to see if these vaccines are safe. I understand that, but, the vaccines are definitely safe, well researched, and anybody that's eligible should be getting them. So, maybe sounds like we might be moving into phase 2 of the reopening a little earlier than was originally planned, just because we're hitting our vaccination targets. We just reopened a week ago, so it's going to take a little bit more time for us to see if there's any impact in terms of the numbers. That's kind of yet to be shown, but certainly there's lots of reason to be hopeful and optimistic at this point. And my goal is, I'm going to try to do an update next Wednesday, and my goal is actually to make that one the last one.
Mhm.
And my hope against all hopes is that these aren't needed anymore. Right.
Yeah,
Great.
Yeah.
that's a good hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if there are any kind of specific questions. There's not that much that's kind of changed between last week and this week in terms of updates. There's a lot of reason to be hopeful. Definitely.
We just heard there's a variant of the Delta now, a mutation. Is it Delta? A second mutation? Yeah.
So
So
Things are changing.
I'm staying very cautious. You get into a routine or a habit, and this is, coming out of the habit. It's going to be like coming out of hibernation, and I'm sure you just have to, shake your head and go out and do it. But
For the
I'm
best.
still
Scary.
Yeah.
It's scary.
So there hasn't been kind of official guidance yet from the federal level in terms of what people can safely do when they're fully vaccinated. But the expectation is that will happen over the next little bit. But that is really very much someone's personal risk tolerance, right? And so, there are definitely two fully immunized people sitting together, outside having coffee. That is a very low risk of transmission circumstance, right? But groups of people with mixed vaccination status, grandparents with young children going to daycare that may not be vaccinated yet and are interacting with multiple households, that may be a higher risk interaction, right? So people may not be quite ready to jump into those things, right? And I can appreciate that. I think a lot of people will probably choose to continue to wear masks, especially when they're kind of going inside, and that's again. Once those requirements lift from a public health perspective, I mean, obviously my advice is always going to be to follow the public health recommendations, right? And so if public health is saying that people should be masking indoors and only gathering in groups of 5 outdoors or 10 outdoors, then that's what we should be doing, right? But as those requirements lift, people may want to sort of stay back a little bit and not be quite so aggressive in terms of letting go of some of those things that have kept us safe over the last few years. I know I probably will be one of those people. Yeah. Yeah. So there's yes, good. Yeah, lots of things to be optimistic about.
Yes.
Following public health guidelines, being cautious, all still really important. But even against the Delta variant with double vaccination, there seems to be very good coverage. So a reason to be hopeful for sure.
Good.
Well, it's good seeing your reassuring face.
Thank you, Anna.
Yeah. So
It's
so
nice
maybe,
to visit.
Yeah.
Sure it is. And maybe next week I'll maybe try to, if I have the time to do it, I'll maybe, because I'm not working next Wednesday, I don't think. So maybe do a little bit of a recap and sort of maybe reflect a little bit about where we have been and where we are now.
Yeah.
Some of the things we thought about COVID, at the beginning, some of the lessons that have been learned, and we can take it.
That would be good. Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
nice to meet you guys. Bye.
Okay.
See you. Bye,
Bye.
Anna. Thank you very much.